Hello, AP Psychology students. Happy Friday to you all. Hope you guys are doing great. Today we've got a fairly quick video from me, and then you are going to be watching an additional video either on your own or on the big screen in the front of the room as a class, depending on what you guys would rather do, as you complete an assignment regarding what we're learning about today. So pretty straightforward today. I'm going to do a really quick kind of recap of what we went over yesterday just to make sure we're all on the same page. If you missed yesterday's lesson for any reason, the video should be posted in Google Classroom. You can go back and watch it and get caught up with that. But yesterday we started learning about emotion. Today we're going to continue to learn about emotion and kind of wrap that up. Starting next week, we're going to be pivoting into stress and health. And that'll be kind of the final topic of this first chunk of Unit 7 before we take a quiz. I think that's set for the end of next week at this point. So anyways, what I'm going to do today, I'm going to jump into the notes here and quickly recap the information where we left off last time. And then from there, we will get you guys working on this assignment. So yesterday we learned about different theories of emotion, and if you recall, we learned about the James Lange theory, Cannon-Barth theory, and Schachter-Singer or two-factor theory. I gave you these nice mnemonic devices to help you remember how the arousal of the emotion, right, the physical change in our body, how it connects to our sense of having the emotion. And there are different theories about how that works. So make sure you keep these three in mind when it comes to quiz and test time later on. And then from there, I gave you a number of different examples related to the influence of the physical context around us on our environmental impact on how we experience emotion with this Capilano Bridge study. And then we talked a little bit about display rules. In other words, things that we notice when we express certain emotions and the universal emotions of joy, anger, disgust, fear, sadness, and surprise that we all tend to both be able to display as well as recognize in others universally despite cultural differences. And even blind people have the same emotional expressions and they've never actually seen it in someone else. So the idea that emotions are somehow wired into us, that they're innate and native to us. And then we talked about this last slide here before you guys had an opportunity to take those online tests. And hopefully you did that assignment yesterday. You had to take either that recognizing the real versus fake smile or the emotional intelligence test and then answer a few questions. So make sure that gets turned in. I'll be taking a look at those next week at some point. So today we are going to just talk about this one slide here, the body and mind's effect on emotion. I've said this before in this class. I'm a firm believer in this idea, and the research backs it up, that the mind very much so affects the body, and the body affects the mind, right? If you have racing thoughts about things, if you're feeling anxious, you can very quickly feel the physical change in your body. And on the flip side, if you're feeling certain things inside your body, that can send signals to your brain, and then you might start to embody some of those things and take them on more so and start to believe it in your mind. So it's a two-way system. And today, when we get to the video that you're going to be watching, that will be shown in an example in the TED Talk you're going to be watching. So I just got two terms for us today. That's it for us to cover here. So this is the facial feedback effect and something called the behavior feedback effect. And in both cases, it's this idea of it being a symbiotic relationship between your emotions and your physical feelings and vice versa. So the facial feedback effect is kind of an interesting one. This was done after a research study, or the hypothesis came out of a research study shown in this top picture up here of this woman holding a pencil in her mouth. And what they did in this research study is they wanted to see, does holding a smile pose, right, with your mouth make you happier? And the results of it was yes. So the facial feedback effect argues that it's the tendency for whatever our facial muscles are doing to trigger the corresponding feelings that come with it. So you maybe have heard it said before, if you want to be happier, you should smile more, you should laugh more. And it might sound kind of cliche, but there actually is some scientific data to back it up. This idea that if I'm forcing my face into a certain expression, a smile, that actually can send kind of signals to my brain that I am happy, and then I might actually start to produce that emotional response. And that's the idea of the facial feedback effect. Now, on the flip side, it's not just smiling. It could also be whatever other facial expression you make. So some people have kind of more of an angry disposition with their face. I won't use the language, but oftentimes people call it like a resting bee face. And in that regard, one could argue that they might be becoming more angry and, irritable because they are holding that facial expression. according to the research with the facial feedback effect. So be mindful of what you're doing with your face, what you're doing with your body, because it can send these signals that can affect your emotional well-being. So that's the facial feedback effect. The difference between holding a pencil in their mouth like this, where they kind of covered it up like a circle, they didn't see any notable increase in a person's level of happiness on like a self-reported score where they said, this is how I'm feeling now. And at the end, they asked them, how are you feeling at this point? Versus if they were holding the pen in their mouth like this on the right, with a smile, they were more likely to display a higher level of emotion, an increase in happiness. Okay, so that's the facial feedback effect. A related concept, but a slightly different one, is the behavior feedback effect. And this one is less about the face and facial muscles, but more about just like the behavioral, positional aspects of your entire body. So, like, what are we doing with our behaviors and what are we doing with our body language? And how does that influence our thinking and feeling? So, it's the same concept in which the body as a whole and our behaviors that we do with our body can impact the way we think and feel and ultimately our emotions. So there's some pretty interesting research done by a woman named Amy Cuddy, and that's going to be the TED Talk video that we watch here in a moment. She did research on something called power posing. In these bottom image down here, this is an image that you'll see in the video that we'll watch here in a moment. You guys will watch on your own. The difference between what are called high power poses versus low power poses. These are characteristically high power poses. And typically, these are things that show the idea of dominance and power. So, feeling power, we often spread ourselves out. Maybe there's more of a dominant looking pose the way we stand up. The hands behind the head is a pretty consistent one. And this is something that she'll talk about in the research that she tends to see more so in certain populations than others. So, as we watch this video, not only are you going to be filling out this information, but I also want you to be thinking about like, what are you doing with your body on a day-to-day basis in terms of the way that you positionally set yourself up? Do you tend to be more big and open, or do you tend to close yourself down and slump forward? And arguably, at least according to the research, that can have an influence on how you're feeling, your emotions. Okay, so the behavior feedback effect kind of argues that principle. Okay, so what we're going to do, that's it for the notes for now. Next time on Monday, we'll start talking about everyone's favorite, stress, but also coping strategies and health, and what can we do to manage our stress better. So what we're going to do is in Google Classroom, or you can get a paper copy from the sub. They have worksheets that come along with this assignment. In Unit 7, there should be an assignment that is now posted called TED Talk Power Poses, and it looks like this. There are just 5 questions. Some of them have an A and a B, so there's a little bit more to it. But 5 questions that you're going to be answering as you watch this TED Talk that goes into this research about the behavior feedback effect, about the idea about how your body can influence your mind and vice versa. So here's the video here. It is linked at the top of the worksheet. In case you're catching up on this later and you need to find it, it is linked there. So this is Amy Cuddy's TED Talk called Your Body Language May Shape Who You Are. And it's 20 minutes long. Again, I'm going to leave it up to you in the sub to determine if you want to put it up on the TV right now and watch it as a whole class, or if you'd rather kind of independently pace yourself and listen on headphones. It's probably easier if it ends up on the TV, but I'll leave that up to you how you guys want to fill it out. When you are done with the assignment, you can submit it online, or if you did a paper copy, put it in the bin. And then when I return next week, Monday, we'll do a really quick summary of what I missed while I was gone about emotion. And then we'll move into that final subject of mesh, which is going to be stress and health. Okay. So hope you guys are doing well, and email me if you have any questions. See you guys next week.